All right, YouTube. Once again, it's Kennard Vernon Stewart here for the podcast talking Auburn football. Go ahead and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. Also become a member of the channel. Got a lot of good things going on that we plan to do during this, what should be a very fun college football season for the Auburn Tigers. Like the video, comment, and subscribe. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger. War Eagle. This is a big one, guys. I mean, this is a huge game for the Tigers. Week 3, Auburn will be hosting the Penn State Nittany Lions in Jordan-Hare Stadium. Now, if we go back to SEC teams that have had pivotal games for the program that have kind of sort of made or broke their lot as it is now, there's a couple of games that you got to look at. You look at the 2013 National Championship. How much of a difference would it have made if Auburn was able to manage to hold off Florida State after dominating them most of the game for about a minute and a half? You know, some folks even talked about, well, if Trey Mason would have just, slid or whatever, that kind of thing, and kind of held the time off, Auburn would have been able to, win that game, blah, blah, blah. Auburn lost that game, made a huge difference in the program. Auburn went 13-0. Not 13-0, but went 12-2 that season, won the SEC championship, lost the national championship game, but Auburn was never able to recover from that game. As a matter of fact, the only other ultimately successful season that Auburn had was in 2017, making an appearance in the SEC championship game, subsequently losing in a repeat battle against Georgia in that game. A game that really sticks out for me when you look at the fate of a program is Georgia against Notre Dame. Georgia made the travel to Notre Dame. This is 2017 now. Georgia made the travel to Notre Dame, winning that game in an epic fashion, and not only having the state of being one of the best teams in the country, wins the SEC championship game, and probably, well, we'll say, we're not going to say probably, but had the opportunity to win the national championship that year. Took Alabama into overtime, busted coverage, allowed Alabama to win that game in overtime, and that would, but even still, that particular game, you win a huge game against a blue blood team in college football, especially on the road, especially in adverse, circumstances, can take your program to another level. We can even talk about Auburn's basketball. Auburn struggled a little bit, but in 2019, taking the team all the way to the Final Four, in my opinion, should have won it. There were some things, some shaky stuff going on with the officiating. Should have won that. Should have been in the national title game. And the reason why I say this is because games like this, especially at home, these are opportunities that you absolutely have to take advantage of. Auburn takes on Penn State week 3 of the college football season. Brian Harsin, obviously, just like every other SEC coach, is on the radar, on the hot seat, under the fire. But if you want to get yourself out of the fire, these blue blood wins are wins you have to have. Because you think about Bruce Pearl's run in 2019 He beat North Carolina, beat Duke, beat Kentucky, beat Kansas. Those are games that, that writes your ticket. That puts you in the winner's circle. That buys you a lot of time. That takes a lot of pressure off of you. Auburn takes on Penn State week 3 with a lot of unknowns. Who's going to be the quarterback? A lot of folks say T.J. Finley. A lot of folks say that Zach Calzada has not performed as well as expected. A lot of folks also say that Robbie Ashford might be the starting quarterback by the time Penn State comes to town. Robbie Ashford more mobile. We'll see. But what does Penn State bring to the table? Well, number one, Penn State is a college football team that in the last few years, between 2016 and 2019, under James Franklin, 42 wins, a Big Ten championship, and a Rose Bowl appearance. Because many of you all know that if you win the Big Ten, and let's just say you're not, college football playoff eligible, you're going to the Rose Bowl and you're probably going to play against a Pac-12 team. This is a successful program. This is a program that is struggling to a certain degree compared to what their normal pedigree is. You talk about in the last 22 games, Penn State is 11-11. That's not the type of program that this team runs. Now, we talk about the pandemic and we talk about the 2020 season. Bad stuff for Penn State. 2021, Penn State won its first 5 games. So you look at the situation post-Auburn game, you'd have thought that Penn State was on their way. Because I'll say this. I thought Auburn was a good enough team to actually beat Penn State in an epic environment. As a matter of fact, I look at all the college football games that I've ever watched. Ever. Especially Auburn football. And I look back at that Penn State game, and that had to be the most electrifying, the most well put together, the most exciting football game that I'd have ever seen in my whole life. The whiteout, the environment, the electricity, the emotions of the game was absolutely phenomenal. Now, the typical Auburn fan will say, well, look, I think we got shortchanged. Penn State comes to Auburn in a 3:30 football game where a lot of folks wanted that thing to be at night. I did too. But I know with the tradition, with the pageantry of Auburn football, that is going to be an astounding environment for any college football team and any college football player who has that experience, that has that opportunity to play in that kind of environment. Jordan-Hare Stadium is going to be on fire. I would be remiss to even say that college football game day might even make the trip to Auburn that weekend. That's going to be a huge game, week 3. Now, we look at the Penn State Nittany Lions, and of course, they are what we would consider, at least if not, excuse me, very close to a blue blood team in college football. You ask anybody in the country who Penn State is, they know. They know who they are. And recruiting is not a problem there. I would say that Penn State on any given Saturday can beat whoever they play against, depending on how the chips fall. But just like Auburn, in a conference the Big 12 conference, the Big 10 conference, where, you know, there are not a lot of wins to go around. You got a lot of good football teams. You got Ohio State, Michigan State. You got all these teams. They're only small factors that can turn a 7-6 team to a 10-3 team, or a 10-2 team, or an 11-1 team. And that's how it is at Auburn. When we revisit Auburn's schedule last year, yeah, I think you got to piece together a football team, plug and play guys, transfer portal guys. Auburn has an opportunity as a 6-7 team. Ball bounces a different way. Auburn could have been a little bit better. I'd say maybe even 8-4. But we're not going to coulda, shoulda, woulda this thing. But that's how college football goes. And you have to acknowledge the ultimate outcome of these games. Where did you drop the ball? Well, one, I think Penn State has to play a little bit better on defense. I think the bend but don't break thing just doesn't work long term. I think they have to be a little bit more solid on defense. I also think that you have to get back to what Penn State had been good at, and that's running the football. And Penn State just didn't do it last year. Teams were able to keep Penn State at bay with the run game, and if Penn State is going to be successful this year, that's what they got to do. And especially against an Auburn defense that I think is going to be much improved, Penn State is definitely going to have to find a way to control the line of scrimmage. Also, you look at, Penn State's situation at quarterback, obviously returning one of the better statistical quarterbacks in college football. I just think the offense has to be stronger. The offensive line has to be stronger. Size, and there's decent depth. You look at the transfer portal, getting Hunter Norsrod and, from Cornell, and J.B. Nelson from the JUCO. That they really have to play a lot better at the offensive line. And yes, as we talk about the quarterback position at Penn State, he's back. After throwing over 3,100 yards and 21 touchdowns with only 8 picks, I think he's a good, solid quarterback. But just like the situation at Auburn, he's got to be great. He's got to be great. He's in his 5th year with the program. He has to be the guy that elevates this Penn State offense. Second leading rusher and former 4-star recruit Noah Cain is gone. He was good. But Keon Lee is the main man. Penn State has to be better at running the football. Also, like I said before, on defense, we don't know who's going to be the starting quarterback at Auburn. We don't know who. We obviously know who the running back core is going to be by committee, probably with Tank Bigsby and Jarquez Hunter, and got some talented guys behind them. But look, week 3. The biggest game in college football is going to be played at Jordan-Hare Stadium. Down in the Deep South, college football is king. And on the plains of Auburn, the battle cry is War Eagle. Like this video, comment, and subscribe to Vernon Speaks Sports Auburn. And as always, it's great to be an Auburn Tiger. War Eagle.